I know I said at the end of the last video that this was going to be D, but it's actually going to be D and E because there's not a whole lot to either one of them. So, D distance. Well, it's about as easy as it sounds. How far are you to the hole? Now that's obviously pretty simple. You just use your laser, look at the sprinkler head, whatever it is that you're figuring out to get a rough idea of how far you are to the hole. But we're going to talk about more with D distance is the distance, the depth of your shot pattern. Most of the videos until this point we've talked about the width of your shot pattern, but now let's focus on the depth of your shot pattern, meaning from the shortest shot to the longest shot. This is Aaron Wise again, hitting 20 shots, attempting to hit them 110 yards. And while, yes, this is a pretty impressive shot pattern, again, at the time he was the reigning PGA Tour Rookie of the Year, but he only got 4 out of the 20 shots beyond the 110 yards that I asked him to hit it. The other 16 shots all came up short of the distance he was trying to hit it. One of the things I always do with PGA Tour players the first time I work with them is I say, jokingly, man, those amateurs on Wednesday, they have no idea how far they hit the ball, do they? And they always laugh and say, no, they're pretty clueless. And then I lay the joke on them saying, yeah, you don't either. Now, that is tongue-in-cheek, obviously. These guys are the best players in the world. But technically, Aaron had a better chance of hitting it 108 than he did 110 when he was hitting all of these shots. And while yes, this is a very impressive shot pattern, if we took all 20 shots and moved them 2 yards further, Aaron would be a materially better wedge player. What's really going on here is we're all, again, PGA Tour players included, playing for that about 80th or 90th percentile shot. So for me personally, my 8-iron goes 160 yards if I hit it good. There's no chance I'm hitting it accidentally 165, but I'm going to miss-hit a whole bunch 150 and 155. That's exactly what's going on with Aaron's shot pattern right here. If he hit that club solid, it's going 110. But you can't just really over-pure a golf shot. You can't just accidentally hit it much further than you're intending to. So essentially all of your shots, that's the furthest they're going, and every other shot is just going some amount shorter based on the quality of strike. I actually just did something pretty fun. I just did an Instagram live to hit a bunch of 8-irons so that way I could get some data to illustrate this point because I couldn't find the data I was trying to use. So let's take a look at that. Obviously we've got a whole bunch of numbers here, but if you look at this offline yardage, the 0 line is technically what my feet are perpendicular to in my indoor hitting bay. I'm sure I've shown you this a million times, but just in case I haven't. Indoors, I am trying to be perpendicular to the net. So my feet and body lines are all parallel to this yellow ruler here, which runs perpendicular to my net in the way that it's positioned. I know that it looks a little bit off here, but that's just because it's distorted a little bit since I'm not filming or shooting straight down the yellow line. What this creates for me, though, is if I can get my swing path zeroed out basically to the yellow ruler, to my feet and body lines, and then hold the face off just a little bit, my shot pattern should really be never left of the center line on the SkyTrack. It should never really, for the most part, I'll double cross it every once in a while, but it really won't get left of my body lines very often. And if I hold the face off too much, I'll flare it out to the right-hand side more than I intended to. But with this 8-iron, this is the way my shot pattern actually would look indoors with all of these lines drawn in. This might be a little bit abstract and maybe a little too much to be perfectly honest, but this is, again, where my shots would be landing, not actually going in that net, otherwise my mountain bike would get destroyed. So my actual shots will land pretty much somewhere right here in the net, but I'll create this shot pattern that then flares off from there. I hope that all makes some sense. I'm really probably just rambling, trying to help you figure out how to practice indoors a little bit better during Virus Mania. The real point of this video, let's get back on track, is distance. The main thing I want us to focus in on here are obviously just these two categories, how far it was offline and what my total carry was. You can see I really didn't hit any balls left like I was illustrating before. My true target is about 8 yards right of 0, so my overall average was 12. So this shot pattern is skewed a little bit more to the right than I would probably like, but again, I haven't played golf in about 6 months, so I'm not really going to worry about that. And my carry numbers are about where I would expect them to. But the real key for, especially for us amateurs, is you need to hit about 20 to 30 balls with 2 or 3 different clubs on some sort of a TrackMan, SkyTrack, whatever device. And I want you to hit that many shots and then drop the 25% shortest with each club and take the average of the remaining shots. So if you hit 20 balls, I want you to kick out the shortest 5 and then take the average of the rest of those shots, and that's the distance that you hit that particular club. And the reasons that I say 2 or 3 clubs, if you hit a 4-iron and a 7-iron, you can basically alternate clubs on each shot, and the shot patterns won't overlap because hopefully you don't hit your 4-iron the length of a 7-iron very often, so you won't have much overlap. You can really mix the experiment up by not just sitting there and hitting the exact same club over and over and over again like I did. And if you can do it outside, it would be preferable, and then normalize it to no wind, whatever the altitude is where you live. Just try to figure out exactly how far you hit each club. And from there, once you have that information, obviously we have to figure out how to put it to use. This is from the coach's webinar that I did just yesterday, but I want to show you because I did not have a perfect mental scorecard. This is number 6 from my first stage at Q School at Firewheel here in Dallas. And as you can see, I hit a 2-iron off the tee, 222 yards. It left me 177 yards into the green. And I was stuck right between clubs. I was stuck right between a 6 and a 7-iron. And the key to using all of this information, just like we got to know exactly how far we hit our clubs, but really those clubs, like I was showing before, they overlap kind of like a Venn diagram does. So my longest 6-iron, my longest 7-iron is probably pretty similar to my shortest 6-iron. Those look like this. On this left image here, you can see I've overlaid what my 7-iron shot pattern would look like, and as you just saw with my 8-iron, it was about 10 or 12 yards deep in distance control. I've made this actually about 15 yards deep for distance control because obviously I'm sitting there hitting balls off of a mat in my garage, a flat piece of ground. That's about as good as conditions as you're gonna get. Same thing with the 6-iron back here. So you can see that really if I pure a 7-iron, it's gonna kind of overlap my longest 7-irons. These are landing points. My longest 7-irons are gonna overlap with my slightly mishit 6-irons. So rarely when you're between clubs, I mean honestly, typically both of them are decent options. But what you have to consider is the entirety of your shot pattern, which one would look better. So here's my 7-iron. Yes, if I hit it perfect, it's the right club, for sure. But my 6-iron, if I mishit it a little bit, or if I hit it too hard, it still is going to most likely be on the green as long as the direction is okay. This 7-iron, I'm simply going to be missing the green far too often. And this is where it's so hard because it stinks when, yes, this particular shot, I hit it really good, really solid. It landed in the longer portion of my shot pattern. It wound up 60 some odd feet from the hole. Well, I was 170 yards. Let me get a thing real quick. 177 yards from the fairway on the PGA Tour. The scoring average from 180 yards in the fairway is 3.08 strokes to hole out. This is obviously all from Mark Brody's book, Every Shot Counts. And you know, taking it from a spot where I averaged 3.08 and putting it to 50 feet on the green, even against the PGA Tour, that's actually not that bad of a shot. Just hitting the green anywhere is a pretty good outcome. This 7-iron, I simply am not going to have that good of an outcome, and unfortunately, you just don't know which shot you're going to hit before you hit it. So I'm technically playing for a slight mishit, but I'm not actually trying to mishit it, if that makes sense. This gets a little bit easier to visualize when I actually just go ahead and create the Venn diagram. So you can see right here I've got the 6-iron just barely touching this bunker. Let's move it down here to where again it's just barely touching that bunker. And so you can see even with the same direction, I've just got this Venn diagram where it overlaps in the middle. And there's just obviously all these old tales about, you don't want to go long because now you're putting downhill. You don't want to go over the green because most, long is dead. My biggest concern for amateurs, and to be perfectly honest, even for tour players, is not that they're going to go long too often. The best players on the PGA Tour, the best strokes gained approach guys, get the most shots past pin high compared to the guys that are missing the cuts and losing their cards. This shot pattern is for sure much better than this shot pattern. We really need to figure out exactly how far you hit your clubs, not how far you hit them if you hit them perfect, And we need to accept, just like I did here, that yeah, it kind of stinks sometimes when you just happen to hit the perfect shot, but on average, you're not going to get away with that. So you've got to play for the entirety of your shot pattern. D distance, how far do I hit each club? How far do I have to the hole? And if the pin's on the front and you're stuck between clubs, always go with the longer one. Here are some really interesting stats to try to drive these ideas home. From 150 yards to 200 yards in the fairway, Tiger is past pin high 49.9% of the time. That ranks him 12th on the PGA Tour in that category. He basically perfectly centers his shot pattern over the hole, distance control wise, from that distance. The tour average is 44%. When he is long, so of those 49.9% shots that are past the pin high, he averages 5.8 yards past pin high. Now we're talking about for all shots rather than just from the fairway. For all shots from 150 to 200 yards, Tiger averages 6.5 yards short of pin high on the shots that he is short of pin high. That puts Tiger number 1, and some guy named Rory McIlroy is number 2. What's really interesting to me about this, if you think about it, is obviously if we're coming in from the bottom of the screen here, we would rather have this red shot pattern than this black shot pattern, right? But what's really crazy is you could actually, with that black shot pattern, if you're better at distance control, you could actually have a better proximity than this red shot pattern because of centering your shot pattern better over the hole. That's really what the art of playing the game is, the art of scoring, if you will. I feel like that's when somebody just constantly beats you and you just can't figure out how it is they get it in the hole better than you. It's these little things like this that just add up to quite a few shots over the course of a round, definitely over the course of a tournament, and certainly over the course of a year, which leads to your ultimate handicap. Just the ability to play the game a little bit better, centering your shot pattern over the hole, over your target, much more effectively. Now, the next letter in decade is E, expectation. This step really doesn't have anything to do with target selection, but I honestly think that it's one of the most powerful steps for controlling your overall demeanor and expectation management, obviously, on the golf course. When I caddied for Will Zalatoris back in 2014 when he won the Texas AM and the U.S. Junior, every single shot that he hit, I told him what the PGA Tour expectation was from that distance to hole out, meaning from 8 feet, it takes them an average of 1.5 shots to hole out. From 100 yards in the fairway, it takes them an average of 2.8 strokes to hole out. From 160 yards in the rough, it takes them an average of 3.23 strokes to hole out. I think these numbers are just therapeutic because they're not that mind-boggling, to be perfectly honest. And yes, I say that as a twice-failed playing professional, so it's obviously kind of a joke. But also, at the end of the day, if you know what your competition should shoot over the course of 72 holes, we can just break that down by round, and we can break per round down by hole, and we can break each hole down into each shot. And just trying to slowly gain a little bit against your competition is exactly how you wind up beating your competition. Now, I'm obviously not going to sit here and give you all of Mark Broadie's hard-earned work. I really do think you should buy the book, Every Shot Counts, and read it. It is a fantastic book. I am going to give you the data from our Decade app for a few different scoring buckets because, I just think it's a really therapeutic thing to see. So what you're looking at here is if you shoot a score between 69 and 71 in the Decade Elite app, all of your data goes into a certain bucket. Same thing if you shoot 78 to 80, all of your data goes into a bucket. But I'm creating with that data a generic profile of a person with these scoring averages every roughly 3 shots. So if you roughly average 73 and you are between 101 and 150 yards in the fairway, your scoring average should be about 2.98 shots. If you can basically make a par from 101 to 150 yards in the fairway on average, you're basically going to be around a 73 shooter. 151 to 200 yards, 73 shooter is a 3.14. So you can see, obviously, as you get a little bit further from the hole, your scoring average starts going up. But if you look at these numbers in the low 80s, 3.3, you only need to make a par 2 out of 3 times. What you really can't do is make very many doubles because those just destroy your scoring average. So again, the real intention of the step E, expectation, is just a mental reminder to control your expectations, because it's when expectations start getting out of control that the downward spiral begins, meaning you make a mistake, you chase it to get it back. It's funny, there was a Facebook post a couple years ago where a college coach said that a player turned it like 3 or 4 over par, and he said to the college coach, "Don't worry, coach, I'm going to get a few back." And the college coach said to him, "Just stop giving them away for starters." And if you really think about it, it's just true. You can't just go force something to get it back. So wherever you are, be there and just make good, sound decisions from that point forward, because I really do believe that expectation management, letting that get away from you, is essentially what triggers all scores that are kind of your worst scores. So if you have a bell curve of 100% of scores, your worst 25% of your scores are basically from times that you just kind of gave up because you got a little too mad, you started chasing errors, you got a little over par early, you tried to force a few things, made a double or two, and bam, you're unrecoverable from that point. So that does it for D and E, distance and expectation. Next up, we've got C, correct target.